Aloha and good afternoon, everyone. It is 1:02 p.m. on Thursday, January 16, 2025, and I call the Committee on Public Safety and Customer Services meeting to order. I would like to welcome committee members. With us today, we have council members Nishimoto, Talba, and Wire, and I'd like to excuse Committee Vice Chair Kiaina at this time. Pursuant to the Hawaii Revised Statute, Section 92-3.7, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda in person in the council chamber and remotely. When each agenda item is taken up, before testifying, each person shall state their name for the record and will be limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution and Sections 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time, as may be necessary, will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. All persons registered to testify in person will be called upon first. When your name is called, please come up to the testifier podium. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to testify following the registered testifiers. After in-person testimony has concluded, I will proceed to remote testimony via video conference or phone. When I call your name, please monitor your screen and follow the prompt to unmute. For those who are joining us by telephone only, please press *9 if you wish to testify, and I will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. Please listen for the prompt to unmute and press *6. Hawaii Revised Statute Section 92-3.7 requires that all votes at a remote meeting be conducted by a roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I will first call for objections, and if there are any, I will call for a roll call vote. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off or silence all cell phones for the duration of this meeting. Thank you. And I would like to welcome to the Chamber Committee Vice Chair Kiaina. Members, moving on to agenda item number 1, Resolution 24-267. This resolution urges the administration and the Honolulu Police Department to develop a plan during fiscal year 2025 to create a new police substation in the Mililani area of the Honolulu Police Department's Patrol District 2. I introduced this resolution in October of 2024, and I would just like to thank those. I know that I have the neighborhood board chair here with us today, and just to give a quick explanation, a brief background. This was started with the concerns brought to my attention, as well as my office's, based on a lot of the violent crimes that were committed in the Mililani area, and the neighborhood board at that time was really concerned and had brought it to our attention. So that's where this started from, and you will hear from the neighborhood board chair in a few minutes. But with us today, we have Acting Major Joel Gonzalez from the Honolulu Police Department. Good afternoon, Acting Major Gonzalez. Could you push the microphone button? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Okimoto and committee members. Thank you for this opportunity to testify today. Well, the Honolulu Police Department is appreciative and grateful for the Council's support of creating a police substation in the Mililani area. HPD would be opposed to making a police substation in the Mililani Mauka area at this time, just due to budget, resource, and staffing constraints. Creating a substation in Mililani will further burden our staffing issues and negatively affect our budget, because we are dealing with a department-wide staff shortage. This will ultimately take away officers from the road to staff the station. The public's expectation, if there is a building or office labeled as a police substation, for that space to be staffed with somebody in there. What we are currently doing in Mililani is encouraging our officers to be proactive and visible, not necessarily to consistently drive for the entire 13-hour shift, but to remain visible and take posts throughout the district in between calls for service, so they are visible to the public. District officers have also taken it upon themselves to create projects like traffic enforcement and bike patrols to add to the presence and visibility of HPD within the district and the Sector 1, which is the Mililani area. Our community policing team has also been proactive with partnering with Mililani High School and creating a student pathways program. The students have classes covering introduction to law as well as other law enforcement classes, and these credits earned from the class will also go towards their graduation requirements. We are actively trying to attack the crime and public safety issues here from numerous angles. The Pathways class is in its third year at Mililani High School, and we're thankful for the partnership that we have with Mililani High School. Once our staffing and resources improve, we can look at the best option regarding HPD's footprint in the Mililani community. For now, we would continue with our proactive patrols and community programs with the hope of reducing crime through education and partnerships with our community and community groups.
Thank you, Acting Major Gonzalez. Members, do we have any questions for the Acting Major? Before I continue, I'd like to welcome to the chamber Councilmember Cordero. Yes, Councilmember Wire.
Mahalo, Chair. Mahalo, Major, for being here. Just to kind of get some more background, could you remind us or share how much staff is needed generally for a substation, and then also what type, maybe officers versus admin support?
So I think that depends on what type of services would be offered in a substation. Generally, if it would just be an office area where the expectations would be officers would be there to take complaints, initiate reports, things of that nature, we would probably want at least 2 officers there throughout it. It just depends what type of services it would be decided upon, but I think at the bare minimum, we will be looking at 2 officers there.
Okay. 2, and just to clarify, so you're saying if you're going to take reports from the public where the public can come in, you'd want at least 2. Of course, if it's served as a central location initially for officers to maybe go and do the reports, wasn't necessarily public facing, but then they'd still go respond to the community, it wouldn't necessarily need to be manned all the time? Is that?
Yeah, that would just depend on what would be decided on the usage for the office and whatnot.
Okay.
But if it is a substation, we found in the past that the community's expectations is that it would be staffed with officers within that station. That way they could walk in and create reports similar to like how they do at the Wahiawa Police Station.
Understood. Yeah. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions. If I don't see any further questions from the members, and if there are any, then I can. But I wanted to quickly, first I want to clarify. I know you mentioned in the beginning the station in Mililani Mauka. Actually, that's not what the reso states. So just to be clear, Mililani is broken up into 3 sections, and so we didn't specify exactly where the station would be. But I just wanted to get that on the record.
Okay.
And if you could clarify to us or explain to us right now, Patrol District 2, where is that located and where does that service? Because that's what Mililani falls under.
Yes. Okay, so Police District 2 encompasses, it actually, the border, the southernmost border would be the Pineapple Road overpass. It would include all of Mililani, Mililani Town and Mililani Mauka. Move towards, it'll include Wahiawa and all of the North Shore from Kayana Point to Velzy Lion. So
currently, Patrol District goes from Mililani being the most, I guess, southern, and it goes all the way towards North Shore, Velzy
yes,
Land.
The entire North Shore. Yes.
Okay, and the next station, I believe, is in Pearl City, correct? Which is another part of the council district.
To the south.
To the south, correct.
It would be Pearl City. Our next
West.
neighboring station that would be right next to us would be the Kahuku Station.
Okay, okay. Because I think that was a question, a kind of a concern with, we know with the North Shore, that's Councilmember Wire's district, and the road that way, and we've experienced this with EMS and our other first responders. That is a concern when you have the district being geographically challenging. How do you service the North Shore and then also Mililani town, so I wanted to clarify that. Councilmember Tolba, did you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. I know in a perfect world, right, we would love to have police stations in every district, but are you guys able to handle the challenges of the widespread area? I mean, have you seen an uptick? Are you guys concerned that maybe we should have one?
So I think a lot of the challenges within our district, aside from the personnel shortage throughout the department, is just the coverage of areas. I have to give a lot of credit to our scheduling sergeants, both the day and night watch sergeants, who do a good job with the limited resources we have to provide enough coverage so that the beats are filled and whatnot. It just depends on when we lose people and we gain people, you know, when there's movements, there's a shift on where the personnel are assigned. So they actually take an active role in creating a schedule to where the coverages are taken care of, even with the shortages. With that being said, being that the North Shore is so far away from the Wahiawa station, Wahiawa is more or less the central location where everybody's dispatched out of. Mililani is about 10 to 12 minutes away from the Wahiawa station. The North Shore, it's significantly farther, or it takes a lot more time to get to the Wahiawa station and whatnot. So once those officers leave to start their day and to do their patrol duties, they're pretty much on their own out there in the North Shore area.
So there's a need, but because we're short of police officers and resources, that's a challenge.
Yes.
Thank you,
Because
sir.
it's hard enough to staff the people on the road to provide service to our calls for service. Because that's the only pool of personnel that
Right.
we have. If we create a substation at this point in time, we would need to take people off of the road. Either that, or we would incur more overtime for bringing in people for overtime to staff the
Correct.
station and whatnot. So
It's
it's
like
kind
that.
of a balance.
I think it's like that in all of the districts.
Yes, yes,
So as a
yes.
public service announcement, if you're watching and you're over 21 years old, please consider the Honolulu Police Department.
Join honolulupd.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Tolba. Members, any further questions? I had a couple of follow-ups, if that's okay. And I do appreciate you coming in. I understand the plight of the department when it relates to the shortage of the officers as well as even the resources. But if you could explain to us, what criteria does the department use to determine whether a substation is utilized within a patrol district and if it's not? What criteria do you guys use to determine who goes where and what qualifies for a substation and what doesn't?
I think it would probably come down to, this is not based on probably actual facts from the department, but I would think it would come down to the same criteria with staffing or creating beats within a sector, within a district. It would come down to the calls for service and the immediate need. Not saying that, I don't want to compare it too much to Waikiki and the downtown substation, because those are totally different areas compared to Mililani's community, the environment. But with Waikiki per se, it's a tourist district, heavy foot traffic, and there's a lot going on within that small district to where you do have people walking in. The foot traffic is kind of the majority of what's happening in Waikiki. I just came from Waikiki before being assigned to District 2 in June. The same would go for the downtown substation, being that parking is a premium there. A lot of it is foot traffic from people working in downtown and things like that. So it would be better to service, I guess, the community by having a substation there. Whereas Mililani, it's more of a neighborhood area. So that probably would be taken into consideration with the calls for service and the need from that. It's the same for if we would create more beats within an area. If there's an increase of calls for service, then it's looked at and we would need to put in for approval to create a beat within our district.
Understood. Thank you for explaining that. And I do agree. You know, when you look at the patrol district too, it is so different. We have Councilmember Wyer's district where it's spread out geographically. Mililani is it's compact, but it's saturated with people and homes. And so I'm curious to know, in the past, have there been instances where you've had officers dealing with the situation on the North Shore and there's something that's necessary in Mililani and they couldn't get to it because of the distance and the travel? Have there been instances where that's been a concern?
So I think that is a concern with our district because it's so spread out. We've got, everywhere from Mililani all the way to the border by Kahuku. I can imagine it's the same concern for other districts also, but ours is maybe a little bit unique, being how widespread. If we need to pull officers from the North Shore area, it's just one lane in each way, and if people are there looking at the large waves that's coming in, the traffic is even worse. Yeah, even with lights and sirens, where are you going to go? Yeah, there's only so much areas you can pull over and whatnot. So has that happened before where we would need to pull officers from a different sector to help, say, if there's incidents going in Mililani? Yes, that happens in all patrol districts. Also, it's just depending on what happens and where we would need to pull the resources from. So you have a better idea. Sector 1 would consist of Mililani. Sector 2 is Wahiawa. And Sector 3 is pretty much from Whitmore Village out to the North Shore and whatnot. So again, with our scheduling sergeants and how they've been able to manage the personnel that we do have, to accommodate the need for officers just in case something does happen. If there is a surplus, we would put it in Wahiawa. That way, they can go either way. We wouldn't put it into Sector 3, which would be North Shore, and have the vacancy and a beat in Mililani because that would be way too far. So we are making accommodations just in case something does happen and we need to pull resources. So if something big does happen in Mililani, we would pull from Sector 2, which is Wahiawa, to come over. And then now the Sector 3 guys would kind of play closer to Wahiawa and kind of shift our resources that way. But it just depends what type of incident comes up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for explaining. Members, any further questions for Acting Major? Yes, Councilmember Wyer.
I just had a quick question and was curious if there's any data that shows that call volume goes down in areas with the substation because people are walking in, or doesn't seem to make a difference.
I don't think we have any type of data that would show that. My personal opinion, aside from hard data saying that if there's a substation in an area, crime decreases, without one, crime, it goes up and things like that, is that I've kind of go back to kind of traditional policing and how it would be not so much the building and having personnel assigned to a building. It would be more is getting our officers out in the community, remaining visible, and doing proactive patrols. Because if you think about it, if you're someone who's part of the criminal element, if you want to come into an area and commit a crime, what you don't want to do, what you don't want to see is blue lights all over the place. Blue lights doing traffic enforcement, blue lights parking at areas to where it's the entry or exit of that particular area and whatnot. So that's why we try and have them posted in certain areas so they're seen and whatnot. Yeah, so that's kind of the creative thing that we try to do. We're trying to manage the personnel shortage.
Yeah, and appreciate that. And I know that's something that, of course, the community is always asking for as well. So appreciate the hard work. Paula, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Acting Major.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, members, we will now proceed with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, yes, we do.
Thank you. So I believe we have with us Danielle Bass. So if you could please come forward to the testifier podium, press the on-off button located at the base of the microphone, and begin by stating your name and proceed with your testimony.
Aloha. Thank you to the committee. Aloha, Chair Okimoto, Vice Chair Kia'aina, members of the committee. My name is Danielle Bass. I am the chair of the Mililani YPO Melemanu Neighborhood Board number 25. Today I'm here to testify in strong support of this resolution, as well as provide strong support to Honolulu Police Department and our police team. We love police so much in Mililani, we want more. For decades since Mililani was created in 1968, this has been an ongoing challenge in Subdistrict 2. We've been included in Subdistrict 2, which again, as the Major said, it's the largest district in Oahu. It spans nearly half of this island. It encompasses Mililani, but also Mililani Mauka, Waipio Acres, Melemanu, Launani Valley, Mililani Tech Park, Wahiawa, Whitmore Village, Helemano, Puamoho, Schofield Barracks, Wheeler Army Airfield, Waialua, Mokuleia, Haleiwa, Waimea, Pupukea, Sunset, and Velzy Land communities in the North Shore. This is a large district, yet the only police station is serving in this vast area is in Wahiawa. Mililani is home to 54,000 residents and is the 5th most populated zip code in the state of Hawaii. In recent years, we've experienced extremely violent and unusual crime activity in the Mililani area. In January 2023, we had a brutal assault and home invasion and burglary. In February 2023, we had an attempted murder at the Mililani Walmart. In March 2023, we had murder and arson at our Mililani High School. In April 2023, we had a vicious acid attack and shooting at the Mililani Shopping Center. In May 2023, there were 2 terroristic threats and a barricade situation. Again, in April 2024, another barricade situation. In August 2024, a 3rd barricade situation in Mililani Mauka. This is not the Mililani we grew up in or we know. This is not the Mililani we promised to protect for future generations. 20 years ago, this Mililani Neighborhood Board urged Mayor Mufi Hanneman's administration and HPD to take action on this same exact issue, to create a police substation in the Mililani community. Despite our pleas, and this problem remains unaddressed. Now, with lives lost, victims traumatized, and crime escalating in the Mililani area, we cannot allow history to repeat itself. The time to act is now. This Mililani Neighborhood Board has once again passed another resolution and unanimously urging the Honolulu city and county of Honolulu and the Honolulu Police Department to create a plan to develop a police substation in Mililani. We urge you, the City Council, to support this resolution and stand with the 54,000 Mililani residents to protect our public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Chair Bass. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Seeing none, thank you. We'll continue and I'll proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered remote testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Moving on, seeing no further testifiers, members, we are in discussion. Discussion? Okay. No, before I continue, then I would just like to share, I want to thank, first of all, HPD. I know that this is a difficult topic to consider because we have other parts of the island, other stations, substations that actually are not even fully manned yet. And we know that we're still dealing with the shortage in the department. And I'm really hoping that with the new incentives that were stated last year by the mayor, that we can address this issue. And I understand that there's crime across the entire island. So although this is in my district, I don't want to be naive in thinking that there's not crime in other parts of the island. However, as you know, the neighborhood board chair stated in her testimony that there are great concerns with this part of the island because with the way the district patrol works, it's a specific part of the island that doesn't get service. It's the district is really large geographically. So I would, members, if we could, understanding the HPD's opposition to it, I would hope that we could continue the discussion, pass this measure on, and if this is not a solution, what can we do? So I'm hoping that as we go on, we can have further discussion and working with the department. Yes, Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I want to appreciate and Jesse Mahalo for your work on this matter. I do understand HPD's concerns and agree we want to increase patrol presence as much as we can. But, knowing that we earlier had passed a resolution for the substation on North Shore, I think this is just solidifying the understanding shared by Chair Bass and the community that this district, I think, does warrant additional attention on both North Shore down to Mililani and outwards. And my reading of the resolution isn't that HPD needs to create a substation overnight, and so that's at least not my expectation in supporting, and know that all the stakeholders here, as mentioned by Chair, want to work with the department to protect our community, and so appreciate the work that you put into this model.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire. Yes, Committee Vice Chair Kia Aina.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for your efforts on this resolution. I guess in tandem with this resolution, I just wanted to find out, is it your intention that during the budgetary process, you will be seeking funds for this substation?
That's definitely at the top of my list, correct, if this can continue. And again, I'm hoping that if this isn't a solution, I am always looking for what other options do we have, but this will definitely impact the budget process for sure, and seeking that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wire.
I appreciate that. And just to kind of flesh that out, I'm reading the resolution as voting on the broader idea, understanding that, as we're looking at all the different areas and the type of funding, my expectation wouldn't be that, we're going to put in $10 million in construction funds into the budget to build it. And so that's, what underpins my vote, and recognizing the need to stand with the community. I think my hope would be we could at least see a plan in the works and have the opportunity for input. But of course, I'll defer to Chair, but just wanted to share my intention in supporting, so everyone's on the same page.
And I appreciate that. I know that this, like you said, this will not be an overnight fix, but I really am hoping to bring attention to it. As Danielle said, this has been something from 20 years ago that's been brought up, so I would like to bring it to the attention again of the committee and the body. Thank you. Members, any further discussion? Okay, thank you. Seeing no further discussion, the Chair recommends that Resolution 24-267 be reported out for adoption. Any objections? Reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to agenda item number 2, Resolution 25-25. This resolution requests that the City Administration submit to the City Council the updated 2025 Local Hazard Mitigation Plan in order to maintain eligibility for certain federal project grant funds. And at this time, this resolution was introduced by Councilmember Cordero, so I will gladly defer to her for the explanation of it.
Thank you, Chair Okimoto. First off, I do want to acknowledge that the City Administration and a few different agencies have been holding discussions about the 2025, about the updates to our local hazard mitigation plan that for the City and County of Honolulu. I do recognize that we have it at the state as well as for nationally, but as for the past 2 years, and as I'm sure all of us legislators have been receiving requests from many of our neighbors asking for updated mitigation plans, or can your Department of Emergency Management look at our community? And so I guess not only is it to update it to the current deadline, or when it, which would be February 2025, but also to provide an updated plan to the rest of our constituencies as well. So that's why I have this resolution, and thank you, Chair, for hearing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cordero. With us today, we have Jennifer Walter, the Acting Director of the Department of Emergency Management. Good afternoon, Acting Director Walter.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair, committee members. My name is Jennifer Walter. I'm the Acting Director of the Department of Emergency Management, and I wanted to provide you an update with the status of the city's update of the 2025 Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. DEM is the lead agency for leading this update. It's part of our mission to develop and implement plans for mitigating the impacts of disasters. The mitigation plan is a requirement from FEMA to be eligible for certain types of federal grants, and to remain eligible, you must update it every 5 years. But beyond the grants, it's a really important plan, because what it does every 5 years, you step back and reassess the hazards at risk for the community and what are the long-range strategies that the city wants to invest in to reduce the impacts of hazards going forward. So we are in the final steps of updating the plan. It is due to be published by March 31 of this year. The current plan does expire on February 20th, so there's a small break, which I can explain in a moment. But there is no risk to the city's ability to receive grants at this time. We looked at that when we knew that we were going to be shortly behind in publishing it. There are no grants open during the period where the plan's not in place that would prevent us from applying for them. All awarded grants will continue forward uninterrupted, so there's no impact from the delay. The reason for it is it took an extraordinarily long time for FEMA to award us the grant to update the plan. We rely on grants to do the update. And it took, from the time we applied, over 22 months for us to receive the award. And by the time we got a contractor on board to support what we had laid out as a 25-month plan update process, was compressed to 8 months. So we have been moving at light speed to get this done, and I'm relieved to say that we're able to do it without impacting the city's eligibility for funding. I really appreciate the intent of this to socialize the plan and make communities aware. So just so you know, there'll be a public comment period, which we are happy to share prior to the official adoption of the plan. That will be in early February, and we can make that known. It is a requirement of the plan that we engage the community throughout. We have been doing webinars. We have done some focus groups with different communities, and we plan to continue that afterwards. We're going to be educating what is in the plan post-publication, and we are happy to transmit it to the council as soon as it's published and offer a briefing for anyone who's interested. Any questions, I'm happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Director. Members, do we have any questions? Yes, Committee Vice Chair Kia-Aina.
Thank you, Interim Director. Speaking about just federal grants in general, can I get an idea of the percentage of formula grants that you receive versus discretionary grants? Do you even have that kind of data?
No, I don't know which bucket they fall in, but I can tell you, annually we benefit from most of our funding comes from 2 grants that aren't related to the hazard mitigation plan. So about $500,000 from something called the Emergency Management Preparedness Grant, and then Homeland Security grant funding.
And those are automatic, correct?
Yes.
Based on population.
Yes.
Beyond those grants, does your agency receive any federal funding?
Unless we apply, occasionally we will have projects. These are project-based grants, the hazard mitigation grant. So for instance, the tsunami signs we installed around the island is an example of that. And so a lot of the mitigation projects are not things that DEM would apply for, but we encourage other agencies to. But those are the two primary ones. The other ones are more project-based. When we see something a grant can support, we'll go after funding for that.
Okay, but do you have sufficient capacity within your department to find, and maybe discretionary, that's what they're called, but let me just say it's called competitive funding. Do you have capacity within your agency to seek competitive federal funding?
I would say that we have capacity for to seek the federal funding that we traditionally have sought. I think our capacity with what we have now to go out and pursue new sources of funding and actually manage the administration of the funds, which is actually quite taxing. It sounds like free money, but there's a lot of strings attached, is probably constrained. But
okay.
I think that's but what we have, we can manage.
And the reason I'm saying this is because I know that you're fairly new, and I've been a broken record for the last 4 years on just increasing capacity in general for the city. And I do know that the administration has made some measured improvements, especially in the Office of Economic Revitalization, Budget and Fiscal Services, and also the Managing Director's Office. In the last budgetary cycle, we also provided money for a DC representative. And the only reason I'm asking you this is in the upcoming budget, I think I'm going to be looking systemically within each agency to empower each agency to help improve their capacity. That's the only reason I'm asking, but thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cordero. I'm sorry, Councilmember Kiayan. Yes, Councilmember Cordero.
Thank you. Hi, Director. Thank you very much for your thoughtful responses and explaining that we will not be impacted based off of the short break that we are going to be having between the end of February or close to the end of February to March 31st, which is when you think you'll have the plan updated or. And I guess, how do we have that assurance? And is it from FEMA themselves, or like how do we get that assurance?
Sure, it's in the grant guidance itself. So the most important grant that's related to mitigation is something called public assistance, and that's if we have a major disaster. So that grant is not impacted by the local plan as long as there is a signed off on state plan in effect, which is done through HIEMA at the state level. Those aren't affected at all. The other important bucket of funding is also a post-disaster mitigation grant, and that would come if we had a presidential disaster declaration. A certain amount of the cost gets set aside for the jurisdiction to use for mitigation. So say we had a disaster tomorrow and we knew that there was going to be some of this post-disaster funding. The application deadline for that funding is actually a year from the date of the disaster. And so you just have to have your plan in place by the application date. So we are so close to the finish line, I am confident that were we to have a disaster tomorrow within the year before the application deadline, we would be fine. The other important grants are annual mitigation grants, and the deadline for those are not until well into April of this year, and the date of March 31st is the latest publication date I anticipate. So I hope it will actually be done earlier than that. I just don't want to overpromise.
Understood, and a really great clarification to know that as long as we have a state, hazard mitigation plan signed off, then that is good. I do have in the resolution, though, along with the request for submission, as well as reporting and submitting to the neighborhood boards, not submitting, but reporting to the neighborhood boards as well. So I do want to have this resolution either move forward or at least like agreed upon by the city administration. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cordero. Just to tag along with what Councilmember Cordero was asking, and thank you for the resolution again. You did give the timeline for February to come with a plan to have it presented, I believe, to us. Is that correct?
Yeah, after, so the public comment period will be where the public can submit comments on the plan. So that will be mid-February. It'll be open for a couple of weeks, so we can let you know when that is. I do want to emphasize, though, that this isn't a one and done. Anything that's wrong with the plan, we have to wait 5 more years. That's the requirement. The best practice is that we should be looking at this every year. And so because we had this compressed timeline, if we've missed important projects or considerations that deserve to be in the plan, we do have the authority without going through FEMA or anyone else to make those updates. So I don't want people to feel like if we miss something that we have to wait for 5 years.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned the public comment period. Will the city administration be taking this plan and presenting it to the neighborhood boards across the island so that they are aware that there's a plan and they can give public input? So we haven't planned on doing presentations. We can certainly put out that the public comment period is open, but if they would like to request a briefing on the plan, we're certainly happy to share that. I do want to share, though, just so people understand what this plan is versus maybe other response plans, because I think a lot of the public interests are in, specific things they should do when there is a disaster in their community, and this really is looking at long-range permanent actions you can take to reduce impacts, not what you do when the disaster is upon you. And so this is more about where we might want to harden buildings or do other kind of infrastructure projects so that those impacts aren't so bad in the first place. And so it is a little more long-term thinking than most response plans. And we're happy to share kind of some of the strategies in there and what agencies have identified as top projects with the neighborhood boards. Okay, but you're saying that the neighborhood board has to reach out to the department.
Yeah, we
if
can
they would-
certainly push information to them and share that we can brief, but we did not plan to proactively ask to schedule something, but we're happy to, if there's interest, to provide an overview.
I think just from our experiences, it helps when the administration reaches out to the neighborhood boards and offers that as an option.
Okay.
That way that if the board decides to have you come on, they can put you on the agenda versus not knowing. That would be really a helpful suggestion from our part.
I'm happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? Okay. Seeing no further questions, thank you, Acting Director. We'll now continue on with in-person oral testimony in the council chamber. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with remote testimony. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing no further testifiers or discussion or questions, members, we are in discussion. Are there any discussion before I make my recommendation? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the chair recommends that Resolution 25-25 be reported out for adoption. Any objections, reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving on to our last item on the agenda. Members, the last item on our agenda today is an update by the Honolulu Police Department and the Department of the Prosecuting Attorney on the enforcement of fireworks for the city and county of Honolulu. And with us today, I think I saw him here earlier. We have Major Mike Lambert from the Honolulu Police Department and Thomas Brady, First Deputy Department of the Prosecuting Attorney. Aloha. Hello, Major Lambert. Could you push the microphone on button? Thank you.
Sorry, I was just practicing. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the council. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start off with talking about the actual enforcement stats and kind of the hurdles that patrol is having. And then what I will do is I will talk about next steps and what the plans are moving into the future to improve our ability to respond to fireworks-related calls.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Acting Assistant Chief Brian Lynch. I am representing Patrol today. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have regarding our patrol response for fireworks. Let me just give you a brief overall view of what we typically do near New Year's. So for us, it doesn't start New Year's Eve. It starts the day before and even before that, but it ramps up to the day before where we actually try to go out and look and find these people who are selling fireworks. Sometimes we get lucky and somebody reports the neighbor, or there's a person here with a match container selling fireworks. We will go in a plainclothes capacity and try to arrest somebody and then seize the load of fireworks. We have been successful in the past with that, but that's not always a guarantee. As we ramp up into New Year's Eve, things start ramping up around the island. Everybody starts, lighting fireworks. We shift from that into more of because it's a target-rich environment to say that everybody's popping fireworks. But while at the same time, we also have to manage our regular baseline work, which would be answering 911 calls. Specifically, the new trend is to stop on the freeway out Waipahu side and observe the fireworks, which creates hazards on the road. That in itself takes a large group of officers to manage that, as well as tow trucks and everything else, as you can imagine. And then from there on throughout the night, it's really responding to calls. And, we have priority 1, 2, and 3 calls. Priority 1 calls are priority 1, which would be something like, if your spouse is beating you up, or, something that needs immediate action that, somebody's like literally going to get, hurt physically or whatever, we would deal with that first. And so, as you can imagine, all these things come together all at once, and we do our best with what we have to address everything all at once. If I were to share any mitigating factors for us as far as enforcement for fireworks on the night of, I think I can say, because I was born and raised here, I grew up popping fireworks, but back then, the worst was jumping jacks. It wasn't, they're bombs. Let's call it what it is, they're bombs. And so for us as police officers, if we find a bomb, actually what we're supposed to do is leave it and stay away and then call our bomb guy, and there's only like one bomb guy, and then he comes out and he recovers it, and everything is safety, right? So essentially with what we got going on nowadays is there's bombs everywhere. So although we're struggling with the laws and legislation, which Mike will fill you guys in with, as with any law that's new, there's issues. We got to work through those issues to make it easier to enforce. Right now, it's super hard to enforce because of the way it's written. He'll get into that. But for us, with the amount of people that we have, and I'm not trying to make excuses, it's not, but you can tell by the video that there's just a multitude of people using illegal fireworks. So one might say, well, then that should make it easy to go and arrest somebody, cite somebody, what have you. Yes, that's true, but if I were to cite you then and you have all these illegal bombs, then it's going to take me and maybe 3 other officers just to deal with that one incident. So even if we had a multitude of teams out there, we would blow through our assets to deal with that in the first 2 hours. So it's not impossible. There's ways around it. You know, we have talked about drones and things in our circuit. Anything seen from the air isn't acceptable in court. So, you know, drones might work in, say, Montana or whatever, but they're not going to work down here because that's just how our law is. So there are solutions. I came up with an analogy. I like analogies, and so my analogy is this. Allow me to share. This topic is like a boat in the ocean, and we're all in the boat, and there's 4 or 5 holes in the boat, and the water's coming in, and the water's up to our waist, and we realize we have a problem. So we want to come up with a solution to the problem. So we come up with a law, and the law is a bucket. We're going to come up with a law which is a bucket. So I give you guys the buckets. We go down and we start bailing. We're bailing, but the water isn't going down. And we look at each other and, hey, how come the water's not going down? And we look in the bucket and there's holes in the bottom of the bucket because our buckets aren't good enough to deal with the problem. But nobody's looking at the holes in the side of the boat. So somebody has a bright idea and they say, let's stop the water coming in to the boat. Nice idea. So we do that. Suddenly the water drops from our hips to our ankles. And now we can manage that. You guys can go away and myself and Mike will do the bailing because now the pukas in our buckets are no longer there. So if we can stop these things from coming into the island, we can choke that, and then what's occurring within the island is a little bit more manageable. So not to say that we can't do it, we can. Can we do it to be effective? It's going to be hard with the amount of fireworks that are out there. And so, you know, right now we have a lot of stats and stuff that we focus on, okay, but what are we really doing to stop these things from coming into the island? So as we've heard, this is a multi-pronged approach. It's going to take things at the port. It's going to take us in the community. But really, I believe we really need to start at the ports. Start limiting these things coming in. If not, then it's going to be really hard to legislate our way out of this issue. So with that, I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, you're acting major, is that correct?
Acting assistant chief.
Acting assistant chief, okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Major Lambert, did you want to speak before I turn it over to the members?
It's up to you folks. You guys want to kind of digest the actual patrol enforcement issues before we move on to next steps, or you guys want me to go ahead and just present all at once? Up to you folks.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have you continue and then we'll have questions at the end.
So with
Members, if you
everything
could
that
table your
acting
questions.
assistant chief shared, it comes down to this, right? Why do we not have the type of enforcement statistics that people would feel good about that something is happening? I think the frustration that the community is feeling is that we do have current laws and we don't have enforcement stats that are even close to being significant for what they're observing. So I think the reason why is that the state law is very cumbersome, and the fact that it requires an officer to understand Title 49 of the Transportation Code, because that's how fireworks are defined. So when you have that burden of proof, officers get a little bit hesitant to apply that law. Now, the reason why we're not seeing these type of building cases is because you will have officers that, again, will hesitate to apply it because then they're going to have to attest to this code, this federal code. And then, of course, then as we move into prosecution, the ability to have an expert witness to support what the officer saw, and that's another domino that we have. So the issue is even if I catch someone, I can't build a case to have enough pressure on them to tell me where they got it from. For example, in a drug case, right, the laws are very clear, they're easy to prosecute, and the penalties are very severe. So now when I have somebody and I say, I have a B felony on you, would you like to have a conversation over where you got this from, right? And we were able to build cases, and that's how you get these high-level organized crime guys. Right now, because the penalties are, nobody's gonna spend life in jail, and for this at the time, currently, the laws could change. But at $5,000 for a civil penalty attached to a C felony, it's laughable to people that are distributing fireworks, right? So these are the issues that we're having. So as we move forward, I can't share the details in the new law, but I have been working with the Attorney General's office to try to craft a language that is usable or that the lawyers can support, but it's practical enough. So the issue that you have with any law, whether it be county or state, is the fact that you have layman officers and then you have, people that have their bar, right? And what you have to do is you have to create a law that speaks to both worlds so that you can be successful. So those are the challenges we have. Those are the real challenges that we're having. And I think right now we're talking about it. It's unfortunate that it took a tragedy to really have everybody clear what they're working on. And I'll be honest, I was working on fireworks up until September, and then the ghost gun issue came up, and I pivoted, right? And now I'm having to switch back. So it's just one of those things. I think everyone here can appreciate that you have to prioritize the things that are going on in your community. And I do accept responsibility for not having the legislation being at the forefront, but we're playing catch up, and I think that there's a lot of push in the state legislature. And I think that I am very confident at the end of this session, we're gonna have laws and we're gonna start to see those type of growing prosecutions, which will hopefully discourage people from wanting to participate in the distribution.
Thank you, Major Lambert. I'm going to have, actually, if it's okay, we'll have First Deputy Department of the Prosecuting Attorney Brady come forward, and you'll share if you had anything, and then I'll turn it over to questions. Members, if you could have questions to either of our
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm First Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Tom Brady. I'm here with Flo Nakakuni, who is the Chief of our Misdemeanor Division, and she is the person that would be most familiar with the challenges that we have with some of the violation misdemeanor level types of firework cases that she has to deal with on a regular basis. And I want to first start with Acting Chief Assistant Chief Lynch. He's correct in what he had to say about drones. Some of you may be thinking, well, we can use drones to find out where these things are being launched from. And there was a 2017 Supreme Court decision in which it stated that the use of drones for aerial surveillance of backyards and curtilage qualifies as a warrantless search. So not only if you were to use drones to identify where aerials are lifting from, anything that you did as far as enforcement as a result of that drone would be thrown out of court. So all of the work that the HPD officers would be doing if they were to use a drone would not be admissible in court. So these are some of the considerations that law enforcement has to deal with on a regular basis. So, Major Lambert is correct in we have been working with all of our law enforcement partners regarding the challenges that we have. And I know some of our council members were former prosecutors, and they knew, we have elements that we have to satisfy. And when you try to satisfy an element of proving that a device had 130 milligrams of an explosive material, that it produced an audible and visible effect, that it was designed to rise into the air and fly off the ground and then explode and detonate, and that it also was pursuant to the U.S. Department of Transportation Title 49 Code of Federal Regulations. You can see the level of expertise now that we have to prove for a simple aerial offense. So we think the solution is multifold. One, we have to have obviously serious consequences for serious charges, including Class C, Class B felonies. We also have to have violations. and misdemeanor offenses too for the end user. But I think it all starts with definitions. I know that Major Lambert has been working on definitions. We're going to partner with Major Lambert and try to get a definition that one is constitutional, two is understandable to the layperson, and also to the police officers and the prosecutors and the judges. So that's going to be our focus, is to focus on not necessarily gutting what we have on the books right now, but supplementing with some common sense definitions. And I think that will be helpful. I would defer to Flo Nakakuni if you have any questions regarding some of the difficulties that we're having with prosecutions as it currently is today.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome to the Council Chamber Council Chair Waters. And yes, Committee Vice Chair Kiaina, I'll start the questions off with you.
Thank you. First, before we even start questioning, I guess I wanted to mahalo Major Lambert for your service to the City and County of Honolulu, and to congratulate you on your nomination to be Director of the State Department of Law Enforcement. I believe that just because of the timing, maybe we all are very fortunate to be able to utilize what you have experienced at HPD's level and connect the dots between the state and the city. And I appreciate all that have presented the challenges and next steps. So I just need to ask some basic questions because you guys keep on talking about laws. And as you know, because of our introduction of Bill 7, which was an attempt to start a discussion of a misalignment, which I perceive between state and city laws. And I do know for a lot of things that the state has to delegate certain authorities to us. But can someone just ask a basic question? Why are the current laws relating to aerial fireworks misaligned? Why is it that the fines are limited to the city between $250 to $2,000? I'm talking about not the misdemeanor level, I'm talking about 25 pounds and more for aerials. And then the state has the authority to go up to between 500 to 5,000. And then we are also limited with regard to penalties to a misdemeanor of 1 year in jail versus the state, which allows for Class C felony of 5 years maximum. And the reason I'm asking this is, you know, I understand delegation of authority, but it is so frustrating for such an important issue like this that we would be misaligned. And if there's misalignment, then we need to rectify that, because that makes no sense. Because if I was being prosecuted, I would say, but the city law says this, you know? So can you just educate all of us on the inconsistency between state and city laws as it pertains to aerial fireworks?
Push the on button. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. I'm Florence Nakakuni, Deputy Prosecuting Attorney, and I'll try to answer that, Councilmember Kiaina. So under the revised ordinances of Honolulu, which I have a copy of relating to fireworks, the prohibitions, the penalties are either petty misdemeanors, 1 petty misdemeanor, or 2 misdemeanors. There is no felony penalty under the revised ordinance of Honolulu. And I just would like to address these. So the petty misdemeanor is, it shall be unlawful for any person to possess, use, explode, or cause to explode consumer fireworks. That's the stuff that you can buy in the store. So that's not the issue right now. It's subsection 2. It shall be unlawful for any person to possess, use, explode, or cause to explode any aerial device, articles of pyrotechnic, or display of fireworks within the city, a full misdemeanor. And it shall be unlawful for any person to import, store, sell, keep, or offer for sale, expose for sale any fireworks within the city, another misdemeanor. So there's no felony provision in revised ordinances. And as Major Lambert has testified, and as the first deputy has testified, it all goes back to the definitions, because I refer to the word fireworks because the misdemeanor penalty section does not refer to aerial fireworks. It says it's unlawful for any person to use, explode, possess, or cause to explode. Well, it does say aerial fireworks or display fireworks. But aerial device, that definition in the revised ordinances is virtually similar to the definition in HRS. And the definition is very technical, and Mr. Brady read some of that to you, which is aerial device defined in revised ordinances, any firework containing 130 milligrams or less of explosive materials that produce an audible or visible effect and is designed to rise into the air and explode or detonate into the air or to fly above the ground. Aerial devices classified as fireworks under UN 0336 and UN 0337 by the United States Department of Transportation, as set forth in CFR Title 49, include fireworks items commonly known as bottle rockets, sky rockets, missile-type rockets, helicopters, torpedoes, Dago bombs, Roman candles, flying pigs, and jumping jacks that move about the ground farther than a circle with a radius of 12 feet, as measured from the point where the item was placed and ignited. That we have to prove even for the petty misdemeanor. And once the item has detonated, we can't prove this. And I have seen citations written by well-meaning officers and officers who want to enforce the law, but I can't proceed with them because I cannot prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, because I read to you what the definition is. That officer, and usually they don't actually, sometimes they actually see something being detonated, but not always. By the time, and to prove this, an argument is, or the claim is, and I think it's probably true, that there's nothing to test, right? I mean, that which was, it was ignited, it exploded, it's gone. And we don't always have pictures. Sometimes lately we have had some citations with pictures. In fact, we saw one that I actually just saw it. And this was a very well-written report. There was actually a neighbor who said, I saw the two guys actually light the device, the aerial. It went off, it was an aerial. But the neighbor said, but I can't identify them. I don't know who they are, but they're my neighbor's friends, the homeowner's friends. And the homeowner, though, she said, no, it was not the homeowner who detonated it. And so nobody could identify them. And so it comes to me, and it's an aerial device. And actually, the officer had cited, it might have cited, I think he cited HRS 132D5, but similar. And I declined that case. One, there's no ID, right? No ID. And the neighbor actually was not very happy. I won't tell you the words or phrase to use, the homeowner whose friends detonated it, but that's one thing I know people don't like to do. They don't want to be seen as ratting out on neighbors, but I know that HPD has said, and we have said, look, if you want the laws enforced and you see someone breaking the law, you do need to speak up. This neighbor of the homeowner did speak up. Unfortunately, though, she couldn't make ID. She couldn't see those people, right? Because it's at night. People are wearing hoodies, jackets, and they run out light and run back in. And also, there is nobody who can testify and prove that that which was detonated was an aerial device within the meaning of the revised ordinances of Honolulu. So as Mr. Brady was saying, and as the major said, and the first step really is to change completely the definition of an aerial firework. You probably need that technical definition which references the CFR, and that would be for the instances where law enforcement are able to intercept what Acting Chief Lynch would like, which is the caches of fireworks coming in from outside the country. And so for those, it's not been detonated. So experts can look at it and say that these items in these boxes contain 130 milligrams or less of explosive device that produce an audible and visible effect, and they meet the classification of fireworks under these sections of the CFR. So we do need a technical definition, I think, but there needs to be a more common sense definition that can be applied by the police officer and understood by the public, and that we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt in court with the kind of evidence that and testimony that we're going to have.
Clarity.
You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for that, but I still need clarity.
Yes.
I guess I want an acknowledgement, because then if there's no role for the city council to help or increase penalties, I want affirmation that the laws are inconsistent and we should be aligned, the state and city laws. That's all I'm asking first.
I'll defer to Mr. Brady on that.
Councilwoman, I would defer to the Office of Council Services, but when I looked at this issue, I don't believe the City Council has the authority to have ordinances more than misdemeanors. I want to cite you to Hawaii Revised Statute 46-1.5, subsection 14D.
I am aware.
Okay, so
I am aware, but having said that, my question to you is, shouldn't they be aligned? And that if the state has to, or the city has to amend its charter, for example, I don't understand why it's so difficult to answer my question. I guess my question is, why have inconsistency in state and federal laws as it relates to aerial fireworks?
Well, and my response to that is, the inconsistencies are not as important as the definitions of fireworks and aerials. Your definition tracks some of the state law. And I think just as we need to change the state law regarding definitions, amend it, we need to do it on the city council level as well. And so if we can do that, and we can have both enforcement, good laws regarding misdemeanors, petty misdemeanors and violations, citations, city council members, Kuleana, as well as state law that handles others, then I think we're ahead of the game.
Okay, well, at least, okay, I understand that then. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Committee Vice Chair Kiaina. Members, any other questions? Council Chair Waters.
Thank you, and thank you for having a hearing on this really important issue. Excuse me. Acting Chief Lynch, congratulations. Like working with you. I like analogies too. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck, right? If we just define fireworks and make it as easy as possible for the police to identify, define fireworks and say possession of fireworks without a permit. So the police officer, excuse me, sir, do you have a permit for this fireworks? Whether it was a aerial or not, you don't want permit, we can arrest you or cite them, So I'm with you folks. Let's try to clear this up, make it as simple as possible. We were told that we cannot make it a felony, but here's what my concern is with that. If we keep it a misdemeanor here, and it's a felony on the state side, isn't there a case, I forget the name, Arquero, where if you charge, you get the opportunity to charge someone with the same crime, and there's two different laws, you gotta go with the lesser one. Maybe we gotta look into that. Because I don't wanna hamper what the legislature is gonna do if we make the penalty less. So we should work together on that. But simple possession, right? You got actual possession and you got constructive possession. So actual possession, we catch the guy with it in his hands. That's the best, right? So you got your permit? No. But constructive possession too, which means if it's in your vicinity and you have actual control over it, right? You with me on this, right? Same like a drug. If you're in possession of an illegal narcotic, right? You got actual possession. Why can't we treat it like that, right? Give you guys the tools that you need. So you just see the guy. Hey, I seen you like that, right? Just like you see the guys drinking one Heineken in the park. You say, I seen you drinking that. Go up there and you can arrest them. Well, first, the question is, do you have a permit for that? No. And obviously, if it's an aerial, they're not going to have a permit because you cannot get one permit. So just wonder if you have any thoughts about what I'm saying.
For me, that permit situation that you're bringing up isn't quite the biggest issue. The bigger issue is the people with the bombs, which is the aerials, right? So if you don't have a permit and you're popping firecrackers, then I can give you a citation or I can arrest you. But if you're doing bombs, illegal aerials, now, yeah, I can arrest you, but now I have to, with all the laws being, but now I have to do the administrative part of the arrest, which is, okay, depending on what you got, I've got 10 cases of bombs. Okay, I can't just grab them and put them in my police car because they're bombs. So now I got to bring in 5 other police officers, and then it's got to be stored because it's. I mean, but we got to do that. I mean, we're the police; that's our job. But the logistics behind just one. And this is just one person, right? So just one person with a huge plethora of bombs. It's got to be stored for evidence. It's got to, all this stuff. It all adds up, and so when half of the island or 3/4 of the island is going off at once, which I'll go back to my analogy of the water coming in the boat. We could do that if there weren't 3/4 of the island going off at once. But with it as existent as it is, it's almost near impossible to really effectively go out and deal with that. So go after something that we can identify as a part that we might be able to make a bigger dent, which is because we live on an island. Go after the ports. And once we get that going, and this is part of the multi-prong approach, right? But it would take coordination between state, federal, and city to do that, which I believe we're trying to do, right? But if there's any other legality that you want to add to that, you can.
No, I think the state has made significant inroads by confiscating tons of this stuff as it's coming in. But, where I live, looking over Kamaki, I noticed that there was a reduction, but it still was pretty significant. So I see the value in what you're talking about. But at the same time, Chief Lambert, you talked about the statistics. So can I talk about that just for a second? Because sometimes if you just make an example out of 1, 2, or 3 guys, it might have the chilling effect. So you didn't actually say the statistics, but you said the statistics are low. We're not really making those citations or those arrests currently. Is that accurate?
Correct. So I actually wanted to just kind of get to your first question. So some of the language, the practical language that I have made recommendations to would allow us to give a civil citation, and the language is written to be more constructive possession-based, right? So that, because a lot of times as a patrol officer, what you're going to see is you're going to turn the street, and you're going to see a guy make them, and then run off and doom, right? So if you make the law, like what you said, a little more simple, a little more layman, constructive possession, it went off right by you, the definitions match based on what I can explain, we give you a ticket, let's make it meaningful, right? $1,000, and then we drive off. Now, that guy's thinking, that wasn't a good idea. The officer also feels emboldened to give these out because they see that it matters in court, right? So to your point, absolutely, and that's why we have to make it easier. One of the things that I came here to do today is if I could ask humbly for the council to make a resolution for what we do to make the laws simpler and more usable to the legislature. And I would once it's able to be shared, I would love to go ahead and get that out to you folks. I don't know the timelines, I might be in a different capacity, but you guys all know, and then thank you, council member, that Honolulu will always be my home, and I love it. But if you guys could do that, saying that, this council promotes the easier language, and of course, if it's in alignment with what you guys believe the law says, that would be very meaningful moving forward. And then I'll go ahead and take your second question, the second part of your question.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate it very much. But as the acting deputy chief Lynch pointed out, you got to collect the evidence, and it's dangerous. You can put that in their squad car now. So I guess we have to now look at possibly, if we're taking this seriously, buying or looking within your fleet whether or not we can actually grab that, the evidence, store it properly, right? Remember a couple of years ago, there was a storage facility that
in Waikele.
ignited and killed people. But along those lines, people died on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. And to the extent that you can talk about it here today, has there been an arrest in that case? And is there an investigation going on and a possible prosecution for actual
I
perhaps
wasn't briefed,
manslaughter?
but there is
or-
an investigation.
There is, okay. Can you talk about it today?
I wasn't briefed enough to provide accurate response, but I do know that it's being taken very seriously. Homicide was assigned, so those are the best detectives that we have. And I'm confident that if there is an ability to prosecute, that will happen.
Terrific. And I'm happy to look at your proposed draft that you want to send to the legislature, and to the extent that we could do the same thing and work with the prosecutors to make sure that it's enforceable.
Thank you, sir. And then to add to the part where it's exploded, part of my recommended language would be that based on its design, if evidence is unlikely, then the officer can still cite. But he would have to, for example, it's a rocket or whatever, right? He's attesting it was a rocket-type device, and the officer's observations are good enough. To put it into comparison, it's like when somebody burns out. I don't got to go collect rubber off the ground, and I said the guy burnt out, and it's my observations, and, heaven forbid you believe the officer, right?
Right. No, common
So,
sense.
Right.
Common sense kind
So
of
there's
stuff.
that type of logic that we want to apply.
Yeah, terrific. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of questions for Major Lambert, if that's okay. And I want to thank
absolutely.
you. I completely agree. I prefer also to have things defined in what you called layman's terms, because I feel like that's how the public can really understand it. And with this issue, I think that the clearer the better. So my focus has really been on the enforcement, and I feel like that's where we need to address, because no matter what laws we put into place, if it's not enforced properly, then it's moot. And you're saying today, from what I understand, that the enforcement comes by redefining things. That's how we can help. That was going to be my initial question. What can we do as legislators here working in the city as well as the state so that this type of issues can be enforced, that the laws can be enforced? Is it what you're saying, definitions, and you have ideas? I'm excited to hear those ideas as well, so please.
Yeah,
feel free
I
to
am
share them.
absolutely confident that if we can make it easier, that we will definitely have increased enforcement numbers. And at that point, we can see, does that discourage, in other words, does a $1,000 ticket discourage someone? And if it doesn't, then maybe we need to start talking about $2,000 tickets, and we get to a point where it matters. So I do believe that we would move in the right direction. And again, it's just making sure that it's easy to apply. It's the prosecutor's office, attorney general's office are comfortable with taking those to trial. And I do believe in time, you could definitely make a significant impact. And I guess the want to do fireworks, because I don't know about you, if, when I was younger, I got a speeding ticket, and that worked for a good year. And sometimes we're just gonna have to give out a lot of tickets to discourage that activity. But right now, with the low number of tickets that we issue, there's not much discouragement. And as a Honolulu Police Department, we need to accept ownership of our ability to discourage poor activity through enforcement.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple more, Major Lambert. In alliance with what you mentioned when it comes to tickets. So just a couple days ago, there was a story in the news about for the AG, and our police chief actually went on and stated that they were in agreement with it, where it was to lessen, I think, the penalties. If you could elaborate on that.
Sure. So what we want to do is you want the law to be progressive, because what you don't want to do is somebody's doing a sparkler and they got a felony, right? You want to make sure that it's appropriate for what they're doing. So what we want to do is, instead of it just being misdemeanor and felony, you want to start off at a violation and then progress from there. So in other words, for the guy just popping, let's just make it quick and easy. The burden of proof is low because it's just a ticket. It's just a civil fine. Burden of proof is low. And then we can use our resources for progressive investigations that now you start dealing with multiple large amounts of fireworks. And then that way it allows us to be more appropriate in how we apply our resources and what those convictions look like. From some of the drafts, I know that there's some language that has to result in lighting fireworks and then resulting in the injury of others. Again, I don't want to go too far because I'm not too sure what language I can share at this point, but I want you guys to know that it's a very robust edit, and there was a huge amount of work put into it. to start, and there's a lot of great conversations happening again. And I think that once we all agree that this works for enforcement and for prosecution, I really feel we're going to move in a very good direction.
Thank you. And understanding that we do have the laws in place for a reason. But I did have a question when you mentioned, okay, so you're going to cite for people doing sparklers or the lower types of fireworks that are currently not legal. But really the concerns that end up being dangerous have been the aerial ones, correct? So are we now going to be spending time focused on these manini ones because then it empowers the police officers, or are we going to be focused on the bigger ones that cause the bigger safety?
I think it's just like with drugs, right? You deal with the whole spectrum, and you want to have laws that apply appropriately to the amounts. So I think, and it's reasonable, to be honest, I don't see officers giving tickets to little kids with sparklers. I think they probably tell the parents put it away, or you could get a ticket. And I think these laws would be more applied to the more egregious violations of fireworks. Just like anything else, right? We don't give tickets for 1 mile over, right? There's reasonableness to the laws. Not to say we look the other way, but yes, our focus is aerials for sure because of the amount of damage that an aerial firework, especially numerous stored in one area, can create. But like I said, with drug cases, sometimes you're only going to have the manini fireworks to build off of, right? And I think that's why there was so much pushback to adjust, to allow for certain things, because then we lose the ability to build on those cases. So for example, I might have fireworks that people may consider harmless, and right now I really couldn't progress an investigation based on that. But now I still can right now because, like was mentioned, it's unpermitted, right? These other things are unpermitted, which allows me to build a case. A lot of times fireworks distributors will sell everything from sparklers to 6-inch balls or whatever the heck those things are nowadays. So again, we don't want to remove anything at this point. If that's something that, let's say we're ever able to get this under control, and then maybe revisiting the ones that people feel are safer, that's something that can be discussed into the future. But it's really difficult as law enforcement when we're trying to separate the types during an investigation. A recommendation would be to have, maybe you guys could look at it as California. What California does do is that they create a list that's called Safe and Sane, and it's a huge, thick list of approved fireworks that are, I guess, deemed appropriate based on the fire marshal. I guess here would be fire chief. And that's how they regulate it there. And to Councilmember Waters' point, if it's not on that list, it's illegal. So those are some of the models that I've been looking at. Again, because of the timeline of the incident and session starting, this session may just be about definitions. And then, like I said, that's where maybe we'd come back to the council level. Well, Chief Lynch, then we'll come back to the council level at that point and kind of put Band-Aids for the next session. And that would be my recommendation for this council with amended definitions.
Thank you. A couple more questions, and I appreciate you saying to answer all of our questions. I know Acting Chief Lynch mentioned usually they're going to residential areas. I wanted to know, where are you finding most of these things? Because I think you mentioned in the beginning how you're finding them residential. There was also a timeline of what you do so many days before and the holiday. So are we targeting
those fireworks for the, I guess, the statute of limitations? So in other words, if I start piling up fireworks that I can't bring charges to, we're gonna have tons and tons of fireworks. So, and I'm gonna own it, but we were very reluctant because of that ability to have another Waikele incident. So the thing is this, if we can untie these laws, we can get it prosecuted, we can do what we need to do, then we can go ahead and quickly destroy what we have. I don't know if it's possible to discuss sample. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm speaking as a very layman, and I probably should have talked to you guys about this, but being able to where we only are required by law to keep a sample for prosecution and destroy the rest, like very similar to what we would do with large amounts of drugs. And again, I'm a lame, I'm kind of being a little bit, I may be ignorant on the evidence collection part for court. So my apologies.
And we understand the HPD is different from the state law enforcement area, but from HPD's perspective, where were you guys finding most of these? Is it at homes or was it?
They're all in homes.
All in homes, okay.
They're ending up in homes,
and they can do more. The state level, the state law enforcement. That's
right. I mean, they're coming in through port. I hate to say, they're coming in through the mail. Good old postal service, right? Old reliable postal service, and but they're not being stored in warehouses. They're not being stored in places that are blast resistant or they have the standards for fireworks, and that's why you have incidents like Aleamonu happen. So I can tell you guys, like, it's scary, you know, and I hated being right. If you guys saw that social media post going around, I didn't feel good about being right. But I think now everybody realizes what's at stake here, and we need to work really hard. And I think this is the time, if there ever was a time, to change what needs to be changed.
Thank you, Major Lambert, and thank you, as Acting Assistant Chief. Members, do we have any further questions? Yes, Councilmember Wire.
No, thank you, Chair. I know we have committee at 2:30, so mahalo everyone for all the work you're doing in the presentation. You know, I would be supportive of the resolution that Major Lambert mentioned, so I'll defer and just was going to ask clarity. Is that something Public Safety Chair was going to take lead on?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so I'll keep an eye out for that, and then of course welcome the updates as well though on the legislation so we can track it. Mahalo.
Yeah, happy to take the lead on that and working, with the committee as well as Committee Vice Chair Kiana. Yeah, thank you. Any further questions, members? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Major Lambert.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Members, we do have to go on to testifiers, and I realize that we are about 5 minutes away from the subsequent, our following hearing, and I did talk to the chair, so we will hopefully wrap this up and then we'll continue, take a quick break and then go on to the Planning, Infrastructure, and Transportation Committee. But clerks, now that we are done with our administration, do we have any registered or non-registered testifiers for this item?
Chair, there are none, but I do see some people in the audience if they wanted to testify. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. Clerks, do we have any registered or non-registered remote testifiers?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you, members. Seeing no testifiers, we are in discussion. Okay, seeing no further discussion, mahalo everyone for being here today. There will be no further business. This meeting is adjourned.